it's to come from a place of humility, vulnerability, and authenticity. I think the reason that so many speakers fail is they think that they need to know it all, and so they come from this place of ego, and they're afraid to admit that they don't know something. And I think in the speaking business today, whether we're a speaker or a trainer, that we're really more a facilitator of learning. Our goal is for people to walk out with more of a roadmap for their own life. Whether we come up with the answers or whether the audience comes up with the answers, I like to say that to my audience, there's a lot more wisdom in front of me than there is in front of you. So if we can somehow tap into that wisdom in the room, that's really the goal. But the only way that we can do that is if we're willing to be vulnerable, not to have the answers, and to be humble about it. I mean, there's too many people don't have that humility, that their ego gets in the way. So let go of your ego. I'm lucky that I don't have that much to begin with. So I have nothing to be egotistical about. So that makes it easy to be humble.
Come on.
So
it's a pleasure that you check your in at the door kilometers away.
But I believe that ego is the number one killer of good decision making and keeping us from what we really want. That in expectation and entitlement, but I think if that sense of humility, authenticity, just be who you are. People really appreciate you just being willing to be vulnerable to share the lessons, and especially when you're going through it, because they say, well, how do you know, if you're speaking, what do you look out for in Asia or Singapore, or what Malaysia, or the Middle East, especially because the customs are so much different. I said, you do your homework ahead of time. But even then, you're going to be in a situation where, I remember I was speaking in Bahrain, and it was this big kickoff to this program, and then they had certificates afterwards, and the first person, man, I came up, congratulated him, gave him a certificate, shook his hand, and then a lady came up and shook her hand and congratulated her, and then another lady came up, and I went to shake her hand, and for her, many Muslims that when dragging the lady, that she kind of pulled back, and I so you're in that moment.
I just can imagine you trying to shake the hand.
And then and then you realize what was going on, and I said, okay, well, will a nice smile do? And the audience laughed a little bit, and I smiled, and she smiled back, and so it was comfortable enough. So then we kept on going, and and I thought, note to self, okay, let them put out their hand. That was what I was taught. But when you're in the moment, you forget that, right? So we went on a little while further. Another lady did shake my hand, then another man, and I got wrapped up again, and I put out my hand, and the lady pulled back, and you're in that moment, and because the audience is thinking, okay, didn't on, stupid, did you learn it the first time? And so, you have to be vulnerable.
What did you say?
So I thought real quick, and I said, okay, I know what you're thinking, that I should have caught it the first time. I said, I'm a little slow, but I'm worth waiting for.
Oh.
So it was a callback line that I've used before in a different context, but it's just being willing to be playful in the moment, or being vulnerable. See, that's the thing, is just be real, be authentic, and that's what people want, because then people are willing to open up, and they're willing to see their lives through your vulnerability. Stories transcend cultures. So if you can tell your story and be open and vulnerable in that telling of the story, so that people can see their lives within that story, then they're going to learn so much more than if you're trying to be the hero of the story, and where people think, geez, I could never be like that. Me, I'm a lot easier to be like, because of all the faux pas.